Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the kind introduction. That's gonna be a weird one now. I feel like I'm an alien in this kind of conversation. Look, our studio is based on an idea of just doing things. We love doing things, and I have to say, we still have a big deal of fulfillment in working with people. That's what it is about, right? It's people business. So our studio is about understanding how people live their life, how they live, how they travel, how they work, how they love, how they're going to spend their money, what they're dreaming of. And the idea always was, fortunate enough to do that not only in our culture, but to do that like globally. Because that moment, which I assume a lot of you experience, once you leave your own cultural background, you'll understand that everything you feel comfortable with, which you're being socialized with, which defines all your certainties in the way how you look at things and how you react towards the challenges of whatever you do. Suddenly you feel that there's other answers out there, which kind of question pretty much like your certainties. And we always enjoyed that moment of giving up, or at least mirroring our convictions and our kind of upbringing to other parts of the world, other cultures, other social backgrounds, and create a pretty complex idea about what people are dreaming of when they're doing things. And that's, again, what brings us down to what we'd love to do in our studio, is working with people in answering these questions in space. The studio, my partner and myself, we're both architects. We studied architecture. We very early on, actually during my studies, I was not so much interested in what I am as a profession. I was architect, I have a big passion, looking from architecture, but I always felt the world is way too interesting than to only look from a perspective of architecture. So I always kind of tried to be multi-perspective, try to group other perspectives, other disciplines around us. So the question of categories, who we are, what we do exactly, it doesn't bother us. It's really not a question for us. We do projects pretty much where we find interesting questions in the world. I think that's what it is. We work in various fields, in various scales, from individual projects to corporate to governmental projects. We'll go from super small to super large, from no budget to no budget, from a pretzel kiosk to a palace. And we love it because we feel that's life. And all that kind of gives us a quite complex idea about what people really are dreaming of and what they're looking out and what society is about. Look, we're doing this for now, I don't know, 30 years now. There's always been crises, and I don't, I'm all with you. I guess the studio has a very positive perspective towards the world because we love people. We just love doing what we're doing, and we know that we need to move in any respect. And I think it's about finding an attitude and a positive moment in how we react as architects towards the world. So here we are. We grew up in a society, or like in a generation where it's all about truth, right? It's like my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation, my teachers' generation was all about telling us how the world would be and what to do. So we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. We don't do this here. So like style, schools, ways of thinking was pretty much categorized, and now we're in a world where everything, as we heard, is moving. You might call it post-factual. One truth is many truth. The truth of today is the problem of tomorrow. And we're living in a rather complex world, and it's, the pandemic reminded us, if we forgot about it, that life is about change. It's always been changing. It's never stopped. And so there is no notion of, any kind of good times or something, it's always moving. It's always moving, and of course, right now we are like in a very challenging time where everything is moving rather quickly, accelerated, complex, scary. So it's easy to kind of find a little kind of niche in the world, to find your like own cozy kind of corner, because we are like overwhelmed of all that movement. And so the world is fast, and you all know this kind of word of VUCA world, so volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So that's the world we are. Everything is like in movement. All the borders are kind of moving, dissolving. And then we do architecture. We have buildings, we build city, we have to find a position. This is our profession, right? We are designers, whatever we feel design is. And that's an interesting question, because of course this is really changing right now, the idea of what an architecture could do and what design could be. Our take on this is really to embrace the complexity. It's really to just understand the world and find a pleasure in working with people and not being scared. So there's a starting point in our work, and that's what we're going to do today. A little journey, through the moment of being in between, because that's what our studio pretty much is. It's in between. It's in between disciplines, in between typologies, in between cultures. And we always felt that a moment of being in between things, so not black and white, not that's my truth or that's my truth, rather finding the pleasure of a certain fluidity and a certain pleasure in the ambiguity of possibilities, always creates for us a moment of freedom, of thought, and a freedom of how to react towards the world. So let's do a little journey of in between, being in between. And we'll start rather easy with one strategy, which is a very simple one, and we heard that already. Our work is about, of course, trying to find a moment which sticks out of all these different opportunities we have. So we are flooded with information. The digital. Our digital life gives us pretty much in every second a multitude of options how to live your life, how to create your business, how to give you one story. And we all know the more stories we are able to consume, the less we know what our own story is. So how do we create places which mean something for you? I don't even, how do we create spaces of value? And because that's what it is about. Our projects, our work is about finding a moment in between, where we'll talk about appreciation, where we talk about appropriation, where we talk about value, and talk about spaces which mean something to you, which resonate for you, which have a relevance for you, because I think that's the first step for sustainability anyway. If we don't value what we have, we're not going to take care of it. And so to create something which is of value for our clients, our users, and we're always committed to our users, is like, for us, the first step of how we think and what thinking of sustainable work can be. So collage thinking is a moment where we heard the word narration, we heard the word storytelling, where we feel it's not on us to tell a story. A story is kind of a difficult thing. If I tell you a story, you might like it, you might not like it, you might forget it because it's one of 500 stories you consumed in the last 2 hours. We'd like to see in our world more a strategy of beginning of stories. We'd like to trigger stories. And that's the collage thinking. You have A and you have B, and these two things have nothing in common. And because they have nothing in common, you fill the gap with your own memories, with your own subjective memories, with your collective memories, with your cultural memories. And that, it becomes your story. So we'll try to make spaces which kind of are a discovery of stories rather than telling one straight story. And I'll go quickly through that. That's a house we just finished in Lisbon. Obviously, it's a very rich house. But that's not the point, really. It's a container of memories for people who are like super, super, super digital. These are guys who are like in the forefront of computation and cryptocurrency, and we created a hub for them which is all about things. Now, the interesting thing is we're designing things, you know, it's like, this is our profession, right? But the interesting thing is, of course, life is in between things. So actually, we're designing relationships, relations of things, and what happens in between. And so this is a place which, you know, you see a lot of different things coming together, and they're like a journey. They're a journey like a puzzle, and you're inclined to walk through them, and you'll see a balance between, you know, the heavy and the lightweight, between something solid and something dissolving, between closeness and wide. And it's not about one story. It's about many stories, and whoever's going to go there find their own story. And I think that's a quite powerful moment, because it starts to relate to you rather than it's my story as a designer, rather than it's just the story of the house owner. Of course, they have a very personal story to that. But these kind of journeys, I think, are quite important, because they really invite you to start to, you know, make it your own. And we love spaces which are your own. It's a little gem within Lisbon. Very close to the central, to the parliament, and you'll find elements which kind of trigger your memory of something. Everybody has a new word to it, and that's exactly what we love. We like spaces, and we like things which kind of are ambiguous in their meaning. They don't tell you exactly what it is, but then they'll open up and they'll give you a different perspective, and it all puzzles together to your own kind of story. So it's a memory of the people who are living there. It's a memory of a place. It's a landmark building of Lisbon, of course. It's a place of many energies which come together here. Actually, it's a place where where they not only live as a family, but it's a place where it's all about having meaningful encounters, because that's what everybody's looking for, right? In a world which has so many options, it's all about coming together. We had just heard the word community. You know, we like to see our work as conversations, really. It's about conversations. Conversations between things, conversations between people, conversations of souvenirs, you might say. A lot of spaces need to be rediscovered or redesigned, are now changing the way how we perceive them, because it's not only being necessary to design them, we really need to activate them. Again, people have so many options, and so how to engage people to actually find multiple uses in spaces. This is a project we did in Shanghai. It's for Poggenpol, a German high-end kitchen brand. Obviously, it's fed by an idea which is not about only selling white boxes, e.g. a kitchen, but it's feeding an idea of how do you live, for heaven's sake? Yeah, of course, in a country where everybody's looking for an idea of what life could be. In the question of culture and nature, in the memory of the kitchen being the center of the house, where everybody comes together. Now, in the pandemic, we all experienced that quite intensely. You know, where the kitchen table became the office and the school, and not only the place where the fire is. So there's a high emotional value in it. And the way how we lay this out is really, again, not showing products, not showing. You know, that's like an example how you should live with a Poggenpol kitchen, but the center of this thing is really about activation. It's about coming together, about having events, about having a learning place, really. It's a learning space, basically. And so the space is less a sales space, rather it is a place for activity. And that's quite interesting, because it's not only changing the way how we perceive spaces as architects, because it's not only about designing things, but it's designing strategies, how to use things. It is quite interesting, because the way how we use spaces will be different, because all our clients have to come up with new typologies of profiles of people who actually are working with and in these spaces. So a salesperson is not a salesperson anymore. It's more like an activation person. The way how we, and you see that in a lot of our projects, the way how we like spaces is we never show spaces which explain everything from the entrance. We'll invite people into a journey. It's really about discovery. And that's the second strategy. It's very easy for appropriation is everything I discover, I own it. It's my thing. So again, we're not trying to sell stories. We're trying to engage people in a visual, sensual, haptic journey through the space from big pictures to small pictures, not giving them a clear idea where to walk, but they understand instinctively where to walk. And so this is all about discovery and about making up again your own story. And you'll discover things, you'll discover materials, you'll discover the brand, but not like in a one direct message. It's more like you look for the part of the brand which is interesting to you. The meeting room. And so every turn opens up a new perspective, it's a new invitation, and you might take it or you might not take it. And again, one part of activation is that it's not only a kitchen place, but it's a coffee place as well. So we'll bring in people who want to just get a coffee and they'll learn about a brand which they didn't know. A lot of the projects we're doing right now are in a conversation about creating something, physically, which hopefully has a big personality, something which we'll love, and at the same time we know that we don't know how the future is going to be in the use of the space. Workplace is a good example for that. I think that's one of the most exciting areas in which we are right now, because it really changes the way how we look at our profession and how we look at what we create. A workplace project is 5 to 10 years long, depending on the size of it. And it's being perceived in a rather linear way, right? Like there's a real estate guy, there's a developer, there's like a workplace consultant, they buy a property, there's an architectural competition. At the very end, they'll think, oh, we need furniture, so we should hire an interior architect. It's a pretty dumb strategy because it's all after each other instead of creating something together. But within these couple of years of the first thought to things, the way how we think about work changes completely. So we create spaces which have a meaning, and will need to have a meaning because that's why we use these spaces. And at the same time, we'll need to make them fit for the future, meaning that we'll have to program in change. So the way how we work, not only through the pandemic, is questioned quite a bit. It starts with that we can work pretty much everywhere. My office is my smartphone. I can do that from everywhere. I don't need to have a desk. So why we're going back to the studio or to the office is not because we have a desk anymore. So the idea of why we're doing this really comes from, goes away from a facility job where it's just like so many employees and you have to answer that with so many desks, to a question that will come back because it's a place where we meet interesting people, where we experience the values and the purpose of why I'm working there, where we experience appreciation for what I'm doing and fulfillment. We heard the word before. So these are, if you start thinking about a project like that, it has a totally different kind of starting point, what a workplace is, and it's less an architectural job than actually creating kind of a community, which of course is based on an idea of values and ideas, how a company works. Now the interesting thing is, and that's a little bit, that's what it is, we're not that important as architects in this point, right? Because we're talking about, values, leadership qualities, structures, organizations, all that is very fluid. We're not talking about space. So space makes that visible. It's just the tip of the iceberg. But without understanding the culture of a company, without understanding leadership, without understanding their structures, the way how they communicate, their values, their purposes, we're not going to be able to make spaces which are in any form relevant. We just put furniture in there, quite uninteresting. And so creating spaces which create enough friction on one hand to enable communication, we'll rather see them as a landscape of opportunities. That's Ritter Sport, by the way, chocolate company. I think you have in Poland probably as well. So it's a quite dynamic company. It's like close to Stuttgart. Ritter, tradition, sport, modernity. Color blocking, the square. a quite agile company, very committed to a sustainable chocolate production. And here we create a space which doesn't look like an office anymore, really. It's a place of opportunities, how to meet, set in a framework which has all to do with the brand, from the materiality to the square to the color blocking. And it puts the product really in the center. So here we have marketing and sales department, and actually it all circles around the chocolate lab, where everybody can see where the chocolate is actually being made, and everybody has the opportunity to actually do their own chocolate. Just to remind them that it's not something they just sell somewhere, abstract, but it's something which is actually a rather sensual product which comes somewhere, and there's like beans of cacao sitting there. Again, the place is not about giving a hierarchy. The place is about opportunities. The place is about the multitude of ways how we look at space today, workspace today, and what could be work. And all that embedded in an idea where change, and that's what's going to happen there as well, is something experienced as something positive rather than something scary. And because I think that is something architecture very well can do. It can give you a feeling that change is something which kind of enriches you. And if we talk about innovation, innovation happens at the borders. Innovation happens at the interfaces to other things. Innovation happens in the areas which we don't plan. And here we come back to life is in between things. When we design workspaces, we don't design things, we design relationships. Again, potential relationships. And we need to design not the things which we know, we need to make place for the unplannable. That's what workplace is really about. And that changes the way how we perceive these spaces. Because it's not about us. It's not about my design vision. It's not about all these things. It's not about tables or furnitures. It's about exactly that moment of things which you didn't plan happen, encounters which trigger something which you didn't think before. Person A from one department with person B from another department meets, and they start talking, and they'll find a solution to a problem they not even knew that they have. So communication triggered by, of course, where I get a good cup of coffee or something to eat or to drink, because the party is always the nicest in the kitchen, is, of course, at the heart of where all these departments kind of meet. And so on every level, we have these moments of commitment. And that's how work looks like, or could work like. You know, there's different variety of studies of what work could be. You can stand, you can sit, you can move the walls. Everything is pretty much agile. Some parts is different. And it's all about not exactly defining how work could be, but giving people opportunities about discover themselves pretty much how they want to work. And in a foreseeable future, there's no department anymore. It's going to be all metrics organization. People are going to be only project-based, and so on. We don't know it. Everybody who tells me they know how they work in 5 years, they lie. It's just what it is. And that changes the way how we look at our architectural projects, because we realize, and that's not only workplace, Perkles just a good example, that the process towards a project is at least as important as the project itself. So we start as architects to design processes rather than designing the project itself. And the second truth is the project is not that important anymore, because if we hand over the project, it's the first day of change. So the whole notion of where I come from with my education of like you designing something, and that's the beautiful thing, and you'll use this like my holy kind of grail of my design aspiration, forget it. Yes, we are very careful in how we design things. We are very passionate about how we design things, but it is a tool for people to live their life, whatever they do with it. You know, and so designing processes becomes a quite exciting part of our business and our understanding of who we are. We just finished, I just came back from Hamburg on Monday. We just opened up Bayersdorf, the new headquarters in Hamburg. We designed their global workspace strategy. And the first project was the campus in Hamburg, still renderings because we didn't take the pictures yet. But the most remarkable part of this project is not the project which we designed itself. The most remarkable part was the change management. That over a period of now, I think, 8 years, the project was initiated, thought, communicated, pushed, discussed on every level from the employees itself, with the employees. So it's really a project from the people, with the people who are actually using it, and we are only a facilitator to that process. And so rather than defining or designing a space which is stable, it's pretty much a toolbox for them to explore whatever they want to go for. So one of the things we did, beside millions of workshops, was, of course, sample rooms, you name it. And one of the last things we did was, like, of course, triggered by the pandemic as well, to build a 360-degree virtual experience, so everybody could kind of live in the space already and use it, although it was not there anymore, up till the point that now the people moved into the building. And to see the amount of care they put in, everybody was welcomed by a CEO or like a C-level person. Every department had like a welcome package, and like it goes really to the detail. And that's what the work is really about. And you'll see that in our work, hopefully, as well. We really care about the details, because the detail at the end is the proof of whether you mean it or not. And you know what? Designing for people means love. It might sound kitschy, but this is how we feel it. It means really that you care about what you're doing, and you care about your users you work for. Care, by the way, is you know, that's Beiersdorf, the mother company of Nivea, so the skin care. Their purpose is care beyond skin. So it's really about making a place where you feel it's about care about employees, care about society, care about environment, care about how people work together. So the whole idea of how you welcome somebody in a new headquarters here, it's all transparent, it's very welcoming, and the first picture you'll get is a working cafe which is open, it sucks you in, it's about life, it's not about representation anymore, it's about the diversity of what Beiersdorf represents. Of course, we know the Nivea box, so it's all about you know, circles and easy geometries. It's about the diversity of skin colors, as it is a global company. And again, a lot of the initiatives were happened with root groups within Beiersdorf, which actually came up with a lot of the concepts by themselves. So, you know, giving them place in that project is a big part of it. So the whole project is really about opportunities, how to come together. The building is being conceived as a classic office building. So we have a 140-meter long corridor running through the building. The way how we use that corridor is pretty much as an encounter space. Giving people options, the classic conference level is pretty much gone, and we'll have a full level of experimentation of how work could be. And again, we see a space which can change format anytime, and they use it already, and it's fantastic to see it. And it's beautiful to see it, even more, that they use it in a way which we didn't anticipate. And I think that's the best compliment we can do. So all that is work today. And we'll find formats for them, and we might fail with them. And that's a part of the experience as well, that you might just have to reconsider. And I think there's a paradigm change, which was for us as a designer, I think, rather important, which is that we created spaces before, like office space 10 years ago was a space where work would follow the space. And today we're creating spaces where space follows the work. And I think that, again, is not only in workplace, we'll see that everywhere. So we'll have to see a different strategy, how we perceive our spaces. So all that we see here has a strong identity, but everything is movable. Everything is basically furniture, from the floor tile till the wayfinding system, and everything can be done within literally, almost without tools, within a day. So although it doesn't look like it, it is a place where everything and every foreseeable or non-foreseeable way how to work can be experienced in that. And again, it's about the little things, about how do you approach a table when somebody is sitting there, so you don't put their belly in their face, right? It's like a little buffer zone. You'll see this, the radius, coming back to the idea of skincare. So there's like always, and the beautiful thing to see it now being alive and being used is that people are recognizing it without having told them. And that's, I think, again, a big compliment of a user. We heard a lot about reusing, and of course, rediscovering structures is a big part of how we see our profession today. And coming from a mostly interior perspective, we love it because basically everything we do is coming from a user, from a existing structure, whether it's just built or 100 years old. We like reuse because, of course, there's already stories and memories embedded in these kind of buildings, which continue that story. Always is adding another layer into our kind of fabric of memory of a place, which we're always fascinated. And of course, working with an existing structure creates friction, and friction we find always is important in order to create appropriation. There is no appropriation without friction, and we do a lot of different projects, really everything. The only thing we really try to avoid is people looking for their ideal home or their ideal solution, whatever they're looking for, because these are, by definition, unhappy people. We're looking for friction. And so we all know that, you might have bought an apartment or a house, or you rented something, and you had your reasons to decide for it. And there's one, you mostly love it, and there's one corner which was not like the ideal thing. And you had to deal with it. And quite often that's the most interesting or like the favorite corner pretty soon, because you just had to think about it, right? And so friction, we love it. If we don't have it, it's a problem in a project. So here we have a project, countryside of Germany, close to Berlin, an old castle type thing, an old farm, and an old GDR party building, rather ugly, which used like as a hostel or something. And that's, again, a place which we don't know exactly what kind of label to put on, and that's another kind of in-between situations that we'll find places which can have different ideas. So this is like a place where people being invited to meet and have interesting conversations about the future. It's a hotel. It's a part of an extending the village functions, which is next by. So this one is going to be, so it's like a hotel, you might say. This building we're going to take back to the structure and transform it into a spa building. The castle-type landmark building will be a restaurant, but at the same time, it's going to be the place where the village people from the next village will be, doing their kind of functions, like getting married. And here we'll see the spa from inside. And the farm will extend to a little village, which takes up the typology of a lot of villages in that area, as much as the building material, like the brickstone, with a big kind of square in the center where all these things, where we can meet for all the people who are there, because that's what it's about. Interesting conversations, but where the village next door will have their Christmas parties and the fairs and all the gatherings together. We'll have like 24 chalets. The landscaping gives privacy to these areas as closer as you get. And when you're inside, it's a desire of getting out of the very accelerated life and getting back to nature, because that's of course what happens. The more digital we are, the more we lose ourselves in our question of who we are as a physical body in a physical space. And that, of course, is a lecture in itself about how that changes our perception of space and our expectation of space. So here we have a place where it all comes down to actually coming back to a very physical experience. You're connected to the people who are with you. You look above you and you're connected to the universe, you might say. And the barn itself becomes a place where you enjoy a good conversation, where it's like about cooking together, where about reading together, like, working together, DJing together, etc. So the in-between is an interesting place. This is a project which is like an in-between project. It's in Shanghai at the Westbund, former industrial area, wharf area. It's a building which used to be part of a wharf. Then it was an expo building, and now there's like the whole area is being a transformative area of cultural and commercial use, reinventing what Shanghai at the Huangpu River can be. And I love this building because nobody knows exactly what it is, and it's kind of just a weird building. And weird buildings, again, it's friction. It opens up stories which you have in your mind. It's a building which we did for oh, there's something missing here, for Hansgrohe. as a space, again, which we don't put a label on. It's not a showroom, it's not an office, it's not an event space, it's kind of everything in between. And we have like three stories. In the middle is like a drawing missing, which kind of, the building has a weird kind of chimney in the center. We'll see that here. And so it's like a journey of water. Of course, that goes back to the Asian idea of, water is life, and in a very metaphysical word. And of course, coming back to Hans Grohe, where it's all about water. And we create a space where we, again, don't have to put a label on it anymore. It's like a non-typology kind of space. It's a space where, of course, you can experience the product. It's a space where they listen to a Chinese market, where they learn a lot. It's more like a learning space. It's a space where they mirror how innovation happens in Hans Grohe. So the whole ground floor is pretty much about listening, about not really presenting or selling. It's really about discussing with stakeholders in the market, with architects, with end users, with developers, what the idea of water, what the idea of development in sanitary products, what the idea of living a life in China can be. And of course, at the same time, you learn something about Hans Grohe being a German company from the Black Forest. So you have interactive digital kind of forest you can enter through, and you learn something. It's all about listening. And then you go up. It's all about how they make a product. So there's like actually the R&D department, but the nice thing is you can actually take a shower. So it's really about coming back to the very essence of water, to experiences. So you can get your clothes off and you can actually get a shower. And then there's like a space which again is not only an office, it's a meeting space, it's a lab, it's a R&D area. And if you go up again, it's about celebrating what kind of products they do. It's about communication. We have like a very iconic kind of space. And that gives option to, hearing to people, lecturing. Actually, it's an extended office. And of course, it's a place for events. And we like these spaces because not only is the space not like a real typology of something and it's like not a straight story, you need a lot of words to explain it. And again, it comes back that to use that building, you have to create our own profile. I just had a discussion last week with the general manager of Hans Grohe, which is all about really finding a new profile, how you kind of run these spaces, which I think is quite interesting because, again, as architects, we have to think these strategies as well. And so, again, the product is not really like something we design. It's much more like a strategy design, you might say, which kind of materializes. It's all about dreams, right? So, and as human beings, we always are, we're always dreaming about the stuff we don't have, right? If we're in the city, we're dreaming of the landscape. If we have a lot of culture, we're dreaming of nature. If we're in the countryside, we're dreaming about the city. A lot of projects we're doing in China have like a multiple use. This is actually a sales center. And the sales center has a different, the sales center only has a use for a couple of months. So you have after use already built in. And sometimes you don't know what the after use is going to be. So this is a building which, of course, tells something about an idea of landscape and about a natural idea. And we build in an interior which is really like a journey. It's like a very surreal connection through a very almost gravity-free space you experience. You're looking through that window into the landscape and, of course, into the development around it. And the second use is a restaurant. It's a restaurant embedded in nature. And I think it's a quite nice example of buildings which have enough power of an emotional kind of value, which open up for many users. And I'm very sure that the restaurant is not going to be the last functions which we're going to see here. Yeah. Last project. It's so when we said it's a lot about about dreams, and it's about hybrid ideas of how places are being used, and about why do I actually use a space. Again, it comes back to encounters. And so this is a project we're doing right now in Chile. Beautiful part of the country. It's all about water. The site can only be accessed by boat. And actually, this used to be a horse stable, and this is an office, you might say. Or this is a hospitality project, or it's like a residential project. Again, you can't put your finger on it. We like that idea. It's applied a place where people who are not triggered by money love to come together and think about the future, and they're going to program. In this case, it's a digital place. So again, it's about finding a counter place of, having something which is highly virtual, and at the same time, it comes to the most archaic place, which is very, very haptic and analog. And so this is an office, and I like this idea. And the office projects we're doing right now in Germany, even the large headquarters, they look pretty much like that, because it's about coming together rather than actually doing a distribution of workspaces. So this is a place which, is an in-between space. It's about something which doesn't need to have a typology or category on, and at the same time, it creates a value for people, which are the most complex thinkers you can imagine right now. And I think that's the power of architecture. That's the building being built right now in Chile. So, yes, the world is in crisis, and we heard the word crisis quite a bit today. Yes, there's no doubt. I think we have to embrace it. We just have to embrace it. Since I'm doing architecture, there was a crisis. And that doesn't make the crisis smaller, like not at all. But I think we need to have an attitude of going for it, finding solutions. There's many truths out there. There's many ways how to look at it. There's many things to discover along the way. And I think for us, at least, having people in mind first, being committed to people who are actually using our spaces, who are, that's why we do this stuff. We're working with people, for people, with a high responsibility of shaping their environment, and at the same time being a part of the society and being shaped of the framework we actually help to create. So we are still very happy campers. We love that profession. We just love it. I think it's the most beautiful profession you can have. Thank you.